Hey everybody, welcome to Nerfcast. I'm Josh.
And this is Shawn.
Hey Shawn, you know what we're talking about today?
I'm game to listen to what you're going to say.
Oh, well, we got an awesome email from one of our listeners asking us what the top 3 game types we do and if we do HVZ. They're thinking about running game types of their own. So first off, thanks for the email, John. Secondly, let's jump right into game types.
Yes, so for me, obviously people have different preferences, but my number one favorite of all time game types for Nerf and a lot of games in general is going to be Capture the Flag.
Yeah, we do play a lot of CTF.
Especially this season. Our first season, we primarily were thinking, hey, let's go ahead and have Capture the Flag in every game because we love it, but we need to mix it up and do a bunch of different game types too, otherwise people will get bored.
Yep.
And the funny thing is we noticed that people weren't really getting bored of Capture the Flag. It was the highlight of their day.
Yeah.
So this season we put more of an emphasis on Capture the Flag, and people seem to be enjoying it. So should we describe Capture the Flag to people?
I think we should describe the way we do Capture the Flag for people. And what I would say really quick about doing game types is find something that you enjoy and do it well. Like, we tried to diversify a lot at the beginning, but we tried to put a lot of effort into everything. Then once we really found that people liked CTF, we were like, well, let's just really try to perfect our CTF game. And we're not by any means saying that we're necessarily perfect, but we've come a long way from where we started to make it more fun for everyone who's involved.
You know what your problem is, Josh? You said we're not perfect, and that's right. I'm perfect.
That is correct. Shawn is perfect.
And I am beautiful in every single way.
So...
And words
can't
bring me down today.
That was beautiful, Shawn.
I know. I'm a beautiful butterfly.
Perfect.
I'm a peacock. You gotta let me spread my wings and fly. But yes, we work now a lot of our games. It's small minor tweaks we do every single game. So we never keep it exactly the same. Just see what small tweaks work, what don't work, and then we can keep stuff around for multiple games. But game's always evolving, honestly. Capture the Flag always feels a little bit different each game for us.
Yeah, and then, you can throw in other things and start working on a secondary, and that's kind of what me and Shawn are doing at the moment as well, with trying out different game types, but primarily really focusing on Capture the Flag. So to start out with, we were just a group of friends playing, and we had what do we use for flags? We used a Captain America shield and a Thor hammer.
Yes, and the funny thing is we did not select these things. These are just things we had on hand.
These are things that were brought to a Nerf game.
Yeah, that was actually my first Nerf game.
Yep.
I showed up, it was for a friend's birthday party, and we had, for some reason, Josh, our friend Arjong, and I were at Kmart, and I'd never bought a Nerf blaster before, and Josh was the expert, so he gave recommendations to our friend and me, and he said, go for the Alpha Trooper, which is another reason why I love the Alpha Trooper. It's technically the blaster I've been using the longest.
Yup.
But as we're walking through the toy aisle, I was like, oh, look at this Wolverine mask. This is so cool. And Josh... you guys saw the video of him last week. He looks a little bit like Wolverine.
I am short.
He is in great shape and handsome, is where I was going to go with it. But, you can belittle yourself. You get it?
Yeah.
You get it.
Yeah.
Yes. But he dressed up as Wolverine. Our buddy Arjun did Thor. And I did Captain America because I was the whitest.
Yep. There we go.
Yes.
That explains that.
But, so we bought the props too, so Josh had Wolverine claws, our friend Arjong had the hammer, and I had the shield, and we get to the park to play. It's like, let's play Capture Flag. What do we have? Nothing. I don't even think we had anything, did we?
I don't think so.
So we're like, well, the shield and the hammer are kind of like good props, and they kind of oppose each other, attack versus defense. I was like, let's use these. And it worked out really well. We actually used that the next game too, and then afterwards, once again, we tried to make little changes, and the flags evolved over time.
Right, exactly. So, there were a lot of things that when we just first started playing, rules that we hadn't thought of. We just sort of did it on the fly, like, it's Capture the Flag, it's Nerf, whatever. We started realizing, we need designated respawn points here and here. We need to make sure that the flags are in a certain spot. Because originally we were like, well, each team will go hide their own flag. And it'll be like, you have to come up and get into sort of where their base is and try to figure out where they hid the flag. And we had mixed success with that.
Can I, just to put this in perspective for some people, what happened was the other team hid the Thor's hammer very, very well. It was hidden under a bridge that was about 8 inches off the ground, deep into the dirt, so you couldn't even see it. It was hard. Me, I'm a 6-foot guy, so I have a pretty long arm reach. I reach underneath the bridge, can barely touch it, grab it, pull it out, and I have 3 spider bites on my hand. And I am allergic to spiders, too. So basically, my arm was out of commission for the rest of the day because of that.
Yep.
Yep, like I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything, but anytime I get one bite, about I'd say 6 inches around that bite area just swell up like crazy. So,
yeah.
I mean, we talk about safety all the time on the show. That's one of the reasons why you want your flag locations to be kind of known to both parties.
Yeah.
So you don't get people doing stupid stuff like, I'm going to throw this up high so people have to climb up and get it.
Which is something that people tried to do as well. We had that beforehand. It was like, well, we have people that can't even reach that without climbing on trees, so we have to make it accessible by everyone. And so that's when it became, well, if it needs to be accessible by everyone, we'll put it on the ground underneath a bridge.
Yeah, everyone can grab that, right? Except it's a bodily hazard for me. It's like, look, I just put it around a ring of fire. If you burn your hand in the process, that's your fault.
That also almost happened at another game. They hit it and people were having a barbecue.
You're right. Yeah, that did happen.
They hit it by the barbecue. And we're like, darts are going to start flying into these people's barbecue and they're going to get mad at us. Like, no, this can't happen anymore. So we came up with flags.
Yes. And let's talk about those flags. So a lot of people do different things for flags. Eventually, we evolved onto Tron discs for a couple of games.
Yep.
So I had the little Frisbee-sized Tron discs that you can get at Disneyland or buy them online.
They light up.
They're
really cool.
They make sound effects. They're kind of nice because you can grip them easily. They're round, so you know exactly what you're looking for. Once again, they're kind of small, though.
Yep.
So if you're trying to hide them, a little bit harder to find, a little bit harder to pick up. One thing that we want to do, and I feel like a lot of players do this when they're coming up with game types, is they look to what they know and try and bring that to their games. So, for example, Josh and I know Halo. We know online shooters. So,
this is true.
One thing that Josh brought up for the flags, like, you know what? It's cool that you can grab these small ones and you can run with them pretty easily. But what if we had giant flags?
Yeah.
That you had to, use 2 hands to carry, and you couldn't shoot while you were carrying the flag. So you are basically the flag runner, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So we did that, and I'll let Josh go into detail about that because he's the mastermind behind, I would say, 90% of the props we use at our games.
Yeah, I like making stuff. I feel like the little details really bring your game out and make it stand out, and people feel like you've taken more time and done more stuff. So, we've been to games where we've used toys and we've used water bottles and tons of different things for flags. And I was like, wait a minute, we have PVC because we're building things and making stuff for our Nerf blasters. Why not just make a big flag out of PVC? Obviously, we wanted to be able to take it with us in our cars and wanted to be able to store it. So, having a 7-foot flag that didn't come apart was not a great idea.
It would not work.
So basically we just chopped it up and used some pipe connectors to connect them originally.
Yep, couplers.
Yes, couplers. Sorry. And we bought some red and blue fabric from Joann's. And I think I also put on some of those little metal eyelets in there. And we zip-tied them onto the flag, which I drilled holes through with the PVC.
I'm surprised I know all these words, honestly.
I'm surprised you do, too.
Because I'm very uncrafty. Next I'm going to be dropping stuff like, what's that at the end of your shoelace? An aglet?
Oh!
Some wisdom.
It just sort of came out fairly well, and people enjoyed it, and it just continued to evolve from there. We had some problems with them breaking at a game because they sort of wiggled a lot, so we...
The couplers would basically not grip onto the pipes properly, and they would just fall out. So you're running, and then all of a sudden, there goes the bottom third of the flag.
Yeah, we had it sectioned off into 3. It broke down into 3 smaller pipes, and then all the couplers. So what we did is they actually sell pipe that has threads and couplers that have threads. So we just screw them together, and we basically remade the flags like that.
I just thought of a fun new game type now just talking about this. This is how it happens. We just talked about one aspect, and I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we had the flag separated into 3 pieces around the field, and you have to grab them all and build them and then bring them back to your base?
So you have to get the 3 pieces of the Triforce before you win the game?
You need to assemble the Shrine of the Silver Monkey.
Sure.
And then place it in the pedestal.
No. Yeah, actually, that's kind of cool.
Actually, that's a pretty... I did it.
That actually is pretty good.
And people will have just as hard of a time trying to assemble it as that TV show.
We need to work on this, Shawn.
Like, here's
You
something...
heard it here first. Shawn, that was the birth of a game type right there.
It just came out of me, just like that. But here's the thing a lot of players have to realize why people go with small objects. I've seen people use water bottles at games. Mm-hmm. If you have to keep it simple for people.
Yeah.
Your game modes cannot be complex because the second you add any intricacy towards the game, people are going to get lost.
Definitely.
And, like, I'm not saying our players are dumb. We have a very bright bunch of players. It's just a matter of we have to articulate directions to them, hope everyone's listening, they're picking up every single detail, and every stuff just gets lost in translation. It's nobody's fault. It's hard to hold someone's attention for a long time. And it's hard just to say, hey, go read the rules online and hope everyone does it.
Right. I mean, I don't know how successful our games would have been if we have all the rules that we have now when we initially started playing Nerf. Mm-hmm. I think because we've evolved and people have sort of learned them as we've gone, it's been easier. And then when new people come in, because so many people are here that already know the rules, they can help new people if they forgot something or didn't understand a ruling. But, flag evolution, little things like that make your game type really, really fun for your players and really show a lot of thought and effort into them. I mean, I know we've talked about us having alarms on our flags in the show before. Mm-hmm. And that was just something like, we saw little door alarms for, to make sure that kids don't get into things. The alarm goes off, and we're like, how can we put this on the flag? That'd be really cool if an alarm went off. I mean, we're looking at revamping those and making them louder and making them pressure sensitive instead of using magnets, things like that. Just little things in the game.
I also just had a thought on how to improve that as well while you're talking about it.
Yes.
I'll share that with you later because I don't think it's hard to articulate what we design sometimes and what we build. So there's no point in trying to describe it over podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, you're doing a great job, but just when you're like, you have to use little magnets that go on this part of the pipe.
Right,
and sometimes it doesn't line up perfectly. Like, nobody cares about that part.
Nobody cares.
All the players care about is when they remove the flag, it makes a noise.
Yes.
So everyone around can be like, oh crap, I hear our flag is gone. Time to run to the field and get to wherever I hope it is.
Right, exactly. It's those little finishing touches that are nice. And having a, fully unfurled... I forget, it's like a 3-foot flag or something we made.
Yeah.
That we cut out and put on a 7-foot pole. So people, you might not have to use two hands, but it's still a pretty big, cumbersome flag that you're holding, and people can easily see you running with it. That was the other thing. Mm-hmm. When you're using something small, sometimes you're like, I didn't know that guy had the flag. I thought that he died and he was running back to respawn or something like that. So now you've got a giant... No one's hiding this in their shirt and running around anymore.
It's not a secret to everybody.
Exactly.
And here's the thing, too. It is cumbersome, but you get some badass moments, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like one game...
Yes.
There was some contention about this. Basically, I heard that the flag was gone. I ran to the other base, managed to get to the other base about 15 feet away from the goal. Mm-hmm. Basically, our rule is if you have a flag in the pedestal, you have to get the other flag to that point as well, and that's when the game's over. And a player was running with the flag. I got him, picked up our flag, and I'm like, I'm like 15 feet away from our flag, too, or their flag. So I run with my team's flag, go pick up the other team's flag, and I'm running with both flags down the blacktop. Like my rear end is on fire, just like booking it as fast as I can. One of our other players, BFU, is just chasing after me. It's like, I just need to get you, and then I'll have everything.
And he did.
And he got me in the back, and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm pretty much at my base, so my team will come help out. And everyone's like, we didn't realize that stuff was happening. And I'm like, I'm sad now.
Yep.
But those cool moments, that's what's kind of fun about putting a lot of detail in your game. When you get cool moments when you can be like, that's what I'm going to remember at the end of the day. That's what's fun about it. And I feel like Capture a Flag is perfect for those scenarios because there's a bunch of little skirmishes going on. You get like little people trying to flank on one side, people trying to drive up the middle. You can steamroll one game. It can be an hour-long game of attrition. You see... The longer the game goes on, you get these crazy shots on people where it's like, I didn't think you'd hit me from across the field, but you did because you're awesome. You just get all these stories you can tell at the end of the day. And, of course, it always feels good to be the hero and capture the flag. But a lot of the times, our players, and this is something I love about our players too, they feel good when they help support the team.
Right.
Like, one time I was running back with the flag. I'm running down the center. One super fast guy is chasing me down. Two of our players, Arjong and Paul, were right there in the middle. And I run straight past them, and both of them just build a wall right behind me and take care of the guy.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, I was just some dude running. You guys protected me and stopped it in probably one of the coolest ways. That's a Gandalf moment.
Right.
That's a Gandalf moment where you're like, you shall not pass, and you slam down.
Yeah, I mean, we've had players do that a lot where it's like, okay, even if I can't get this guy, I'm going to jump in front of the dart so that it doesn't hit you so that you can continue to return the flag. Like, never, almost any game type that involves teamwork, like, never ever forget the people who are guarding you. Because really, without them, you'd probably be screwed.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is. You're running from someone, and there are people behind you that are keeping that person from getting you. They are facilitating the win.
And no one person is ever going to win a game for you.
Yeah.
We have a lot of all-star players who have different skill sets, and everyone's like, oh, it's unfair because that person's on the team. Like, you know what? No. I see a lot of good players on this team that have a lot of unique talents. It's just a matter of utilizing them and being effective with them.
Yeah.
Like, never count yourself out.
Oh,
like,
definitely.
For example, that game I was just talking about, the guy was 15 feet away from having the win.
True.
And granted, our team still lost, but you know what? I ran at full force to go and try and stop it.
Yeah.
Got it. Our buddy Arjong was there to back me up, and he did a great job. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember a lot of people on our team saw you running away, and we're just like, we're at respawn, like, so many people, oh, well, that's it. That's the game. Okay, Shawn's running away. And then we see you running back with both flags. Like, what's going on? It's just flags back and forth. It was like Benny Hill music should have been playing.
And it's weird because you never see a player with both flag. And mind you, these are 7-foot-long flags. And I was running with one in one hand, one in the other, and trying to juggle my Alpha Trooper at the same time. Afterwards, I'm like, why didn't I just drop my Alpha Trooper on the ground? It can take a hit.
Yep.
It'll be okay. I could have been someone.
But yeah, I mean, game types will vary also depending on what you have around you. Capture the flag is pretty easy to play almost no matter what your terrain is. We've played in more woodland type areas and urban type areas, and
open field areas.
You can do it in open fields. I mean, you can play Nerf in open fields. It's just how much cover you want to have or not have that really. We enjoy having a lot of cover.
Yeah, I don't like it when you get into these range fights to see who can shoot the furthest.
Right.
It's more fun being like, you know what? I saw you ducked your head out and I was able to capitalize on that moment. Or I know everyone's going left, so I'm going to go right.
Yeah.
Like, I feel it's very much a series of duels, it feels like.
Yeah,
like
and you can sneak around in some cases, or you can barrel straight through the middle, or you can, just butt heads and lock in a section and be going against someone. And I think that's what makes, at least the way we play, interesting, because you have people who are good at all of those different things. Like, I'm going to be here, and I'm going to just keep people from moving by just laying down a lot of cover fire, but somebody's going to go around back and try to sneak the flag, while somebody else is just going to start to barrel straight through the middle to really divert all of the attention. And you can do that in a field. You might see that person who's just trying to sneak over because there's nothing for them to hide behind.
And once again, teamwork kicks in. If you are in an open field, if you are effectively able to organize your team better, to bring them together, to use their strengths and weaknesses better than the other team, that's what wins it for you. Yeah. On any field, I would almost say teamwork will trump terrain and strategy or raw talent.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I would rather have two people who work really well together with me than three people who are the fastest people at the game on the other team.
For sure. I mean, communication is king in teamwork games. Definitely.
And plus, I feel like, once again, you just have more stories to tell in teamwork games, and that's why everyone likes Capture the Flag. Simple objective, it's clear, you know what you're doing, and everyone can feel like they're useful.
Right, the other thing I really like about Capture the Flag is, because the way we play is one hit, you're out, but you go to a respawn point, you can continually respawn throughout the game. So there's never a point where you have certain people who are like, oh, I was the first person out, now I gotta wait for the entire game to be over, and I'm just bored, and I came to a Nerf game, but I'm not really playing Nerf. So it's really nice to allow people to play to their full capability. People that want to run all day can just continually run, and people that are like, okay, I'm tired, they can rest, fall back a little bit more, they don't have to be as aggressive throughout the day, and then once they get their second wind, they can still keep playing and still be active members just by switching off who's on offense, who's on defense, that sort of thing. Yeah. So I think that's why we really like capture the flag.
And there's so many variations on it too. You can add different rules to it. You can do classes if you want with it. There's sky's the limit.
Tons of customization. We've thought about doing a ton of different things, and we've played with a lot of different rules. And that's why I think when we were talking about things for you to do for your own games, it really comes down to your player base and things that you like or dislike. If you like having medics, we don't have medics in our games, but it's something we have thought about, do it. I mean, limit one per team, or let people throw in different rules, or once you have a rule set that you really like, add a rule in and change it up to see if it makes the game better, or if people don't like it, just say, okay, we're not going to do that again. It's not that big of, recently what we did was you just used to be able to shag darts, or pick up darts, whenever.
Sorry, that's my terminology seeping in?
It is, it's correct terminology.
It is
shagging
correct terminology.
Just for people who are listening that don't know, that's what shagging is, because all you've done is seen Austin Powers. Yes, we're talking about picking up darts. So, we basically said we had a lot of issues where people were getting tagged, and they were like, well, I don't have a lot of darts because I wasted a lot of them, so I'm just going to go onto the other team's base where I was shooting all of those darts and pick them up. And then if you shot them, they were like, cool, okay, I'm out. Well, I'm just going to keep picking up darts and then go to respawn. So we decided to make a rule where, hey, you have to be alive to pick up darts. If you are dead, you have to go immediately to the respawn point. And that really made things more fun for us, we've noticed, because there's not that, well, I don't care if I'm dead because I'm only here to pick up darts. And then it starts to become almost, the war of attrition can get really unbalanced when you do that, because if people on the other team don't come over and just die on purpose, then you have all the darts that your team's picking up, and you send a few people over to go pick up all the darts that you've also fired, and it's kind of stupid.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like a real victory. It just feels like you kind of gamed the system a little bit.
Right.
That's also a key thing I want to mention right now. If you're coming up with game types, you're playing games, never, ever be vague with the rules.
Yeah.
Because people are going to pounce on top of that and abuse it. We've seen plenty of games where people are like, oh, just respawn wherever you want. Just go somewhere kind of out of the battle and respawn. I'm like, okay, so I could just walk behind enemy lines where no one's right on top of me and respawn then, right?
Yeah.
Nothing's stopping me from that. Or another time, too, it's like, oh, well, where respawn's going to be? It's like, oh, we'll just put it on top of the flag. It's like, okay, what's stopping someone from taking one step off of the flag, getting shot, step back, step forward? Oh, I'm back in.
Yeah, we've been at games where that's happened, where it's like you have instant respawn and it's on the point that you're trying to capture. Well, okay, if my instant respawn is exactly where I'm supposed to be, that doesn't make any sense. So hard and fast rules are good. That's what I like about respawn points. I like, having respawn times. It's not vague like, oh, well, you've got X number of hits, and then you're dead. Well, that's really hard for me to moderate as an admin.
It's hard to moderate, and it's hard to see. Visually, you can't be like, you get the situation where you're like, how many lives you have? Are you in right now or are you out? You get these moments where people are taken out of the game because they're like, I need information to keep playing properly.
Right.
And that's what's nice about a video game, because all the information is given to you. Like, you have a health bar you can see, there's a number of lives you can see, ammo indicators, there's icons showing you where stuff is. In real life, that transfer does not work as well.
Definitely.
That's why you need to go more simple for design. So for us, that was saying, hey, you don't get lives, you have to go back to a respawn point, same count time as everyone. Another reason why we didn't like people on the field shagging all the time when they were technically supposed to be going back to respawn was because people would be on the field and then like just picking up darts, they'd get shot and like, oh no, I'm out right now, I'm actually not in. It's like, well, I just wasted a dart shooting at you and I was distracted.
Right.
Or you can get people kind of like hiding behind the people who are picking up darts and like using them as mobile cover.
Yeah.
It's like anytime you leave that leeway for your system to be gamed, for people to kind of exploit certain vulnerabilities, people are going to take it.
Yeah, and if you just have the sort of don't be that guy, or some people say have like the don't be a douchebag rule, or various other things.
I call it the asshat rule.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of names for it, but it's still very vague. I mean, don't get me wrong, that rule still sort of exists in our games, where it's if you're going to be a douche, then, we're going to ask you to stop doing whatever you're doing. If you found out a certain way to game something and we've asked you to stop and we'll come to a hard conclusion on how to fix that later, then just do it. But when you have that as a rule and you're just kind of like, oh yeah, well, I consider that particular thing that you are doing to be, breaking that rule. Okay, so you're breaking the rule of being a douche.
And here's the thing, too. Douchery is subjective.
Exactly.
So one person can be doing something that they don't consider douchey and someone else does.
Right, and then it becomes very personal when you tell them, like, hey, don't do that.
And people are like, there's no rule saying against it, and I don't think I'm doing anything wrong.
Right, well, you're being a douche now. Don't be a douche. That's a rule. Mm-hmm. Get out.
It's basically Josh and I, when we run our games, want to have the ability to override saying, hey, if you are making the game not fun, it's deliberate, then we're going to come talk to you about it.
Right.
Otherwise, that situation, the way I avoid it is I make rules for it.
Yeah.
Like, one of the examples we have is when players were out, we had the rule dead men tell no tales. So basically, if you're shot, you're killed, you can't be running back to base saying, oh, there's 2 guys hiding behind the bush over there. You can't give information while you're dead. You have to be spawned back in before you can start relaying, like, oh, they have our flag, or anything like that. Mm-hmm. The problem was people would forget the rule. They would, like, in the haste of the moment, just start yelling stuff out.
A lot of times you'll hear somebody will get shot, and those will be running back saying, like, defense, or something.
Yeah.
You know.
Or they have or something like they have our flag.
Yeah.
You know? And I like the idea of dead men have no tails. I think it's very fun because information is always really useful in battle, so being able to deny that because you're dead is like an extra punishment, which you should be punished for dying in a game.
Yep.
It's natural. We want to give you a chance to come back and redeem yourself always. That's why we have infinite respawns.
Yeah.
We don't want you to feel like, oh, I'm out forever. There's nothing I can do. But we like the idea of dead men tell no tales. The problem was it became so hard to police. Josh and I would be yelling, hey, you can't talk. Other players saying, hey, you can't talk. And they're like, why? It's like, because dead men tell no tales. I'm like, I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
So with that, it got to the point where, like, you know what? If you're dead, go ahead and say whatever you want to do.
Right.
Just because there's no way we can't make you be out or respawning. You're already going to respawn at that point.
Yeah, the damage has been done.
And it's not a big enough offense where I want to say, okay, you can't play for the rest of this round or we're going to ask you to leave.
Right.
It's such a small minor thing. I was just like, you know what? I accept it's going to happen, so let's just allow it.
Yeah, I mean, because it was something that was just where people could forget it. It wasn't like, oh, you're doing that on purpose now because I told you to stop. Like, oh, no, you might have just said something because honestly, in the heat of the moment, you're like, I want to give people information and tell them that we need to be on high defense because they're attacking or that is going on. And honestly, it's worked out for the better because I feel like now we're treating it less like we're trying to do some sort of milsim and like, oh, realistically, you wouldn't be able to talk because you'd be dead, and more like this is a sport and we want to encourage people to work together, and as much communication as possible always makes for a better game and you get better teamwork that way. And like I said, it's worked out because now people are like, oh yeah, I got information from them, like they start talking more, and voila, now your team works better as a whole.
Mm-hmm. That said, too, there are certain details where I feel like it is crucial to be strict with players.
Oh, definitely.
Like, I don't want to be too big of a jerk with players ever, but you get players, for example, other game types we play we'll go into later, where you have to count to respawn and you'll still be active on the field. Mm-hmm. The way we signify this is you hold your blaster in the air. Yeah. It's kind of like the universal sign of, like, I'm not active, I'm going back to respawn, I'm respawning right now, there's pedestrians nearby, so I'm not going to shoot you.
Right.
And then you count out how long your respawn is. So that way you don't get people trying to be, like, counting in their head and then being active when people don't expect it. Mm-hmm. It has to be known when people are zoning back in, basically. Zoning in is the term I use for what people will call spawning, respawning, just coming back as a player into the game. We've had players who refuse to put their blaster up, so they get shot, and they're like, oh, I was out. Once again, that's like, okay, why wasn't your blaster up?
Yeah.
Or you get people who are just sitting there quietly, and it's like, no, count out loud. And I've had to tell players multiple times, count out loud, count out loud. Mm-hmm. Once again, if it's one thing where we have to keep addressing it to a player, that's where it becomes a problem. But if it's something in general most players keep doing, then as a host, as a moderator, then I'm like, okay, I've done something wrong in the rules.
Right.
If it's a contained incident, then it's like that player needs to be instructed how to play properly. If it's multiple people doing it, then I'm like, okay, then I've lapsed somehow.
Right.
I've made the mistake.
Exactly. But I think enough about capture the flag.
Yeah, we've talked a long time, like over half this podcast has been about capture the flag. It's because how much we love it.
Yeah, and how versatile it is. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you aren't doing capture the flag, highly recommend you at least try it out and see how your players like it. But let's see, what's something else that we've done? Because we have a couple of other game types. We have some that we've tried. They're a little bit difficult to describe on the podcast. and then some that haven't worked out at all, where we try to do class-based things, which I still think is really fun. It's just difficult to, A, have a visual cue that let people know what other classes are, and B, make enough visual cues to where people can all see these things and know what classes people are supposed to be.
And see people understanding how the classes work.
Yeah.
Once again, we tried to make it very simple and be like, here's the one extra thing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
People got all confused.
Yeah. I mean, for example, there was like a class who, they were the only ones allowed to pick up darts. Didn't think that was too complicated. There were, we could go over these classes. It was pretty simple.
Yeah.
It was sort of a plant the bomb type scenario. Mm-hmm. You had an engineer type guy who was the only person who could either plant the bomb or defuse the bomb on each team. A guy who could pick up darts. A class who was the medic, who basically when you were shot, instead of you going immediately to respawn, you had to crouch down for X number of seconds, and then after those seconds were done, if the medic hadn't come by and healed you, then you had to go to respawn for an additional number of seconds. When we determined what that was, we were going to test it more.
Yeah.
And then we had somebody who, instead of going to respawn, they had to fall back, and they only had they had a shorter respawn time or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it was supposed to be more of a heavy gunner.
Yeah.
So most of these things were pretty simple. There weren't a whole lot of rules to them.
Yeah, that's pretty much all the rules right there with them. That's all it was. But people just had a hard time grasping it, because when you have all these elements intertwining and mingling with each other, I feel like people just get confused. How does my class interact with your class? Which realistically, Josh and I did design it with that in mind, that there shouldn't be any confusion about what's happening on the field.
Yeah, everybody can still shoot everybody.
Yes.
You're still a soldier, in this Nerf war.
The medic can shoot someone, the scavenger can shoot someone, the engineer can shoot someone.
Yeah, you just all have special abilities.
Yeah.
But people were just really confused, and it was complicated. And for the visual cues, we ended up using different hats to represent things. And then when we went to the next game, people didn't want to swap hats because they were sweaty, and it was just kind of a fail that really still feels like if we only had 8 people coming to our games, mm-hmm. we could probably just put something together and have fun with this. But now that we're getting way more people than that,
we're getting over 30 players now.
Yeah, there's no way that I'm going to make that many hats. And then we had them all in different colors and different types of hats represented, obviously different classes. So
yeah, I would still like to revisit it to see if there's some way we can bring it back. But at that scale.
It's on the shelf. It's like the
it's
double.
table.
It's the double drum mag that Nerf never brought out. They're like, we'll revisit it at some point, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully.
Yeah.
So let's focus on games we do play. So another popular game that we haven't. I feel stupid now. We haven't played it personally yet. We are designing the parts for it right now, but we've seen it done on YouTube effectively enough where we know it's not really going to be an issue. Mm-hmm. It's King of the Hill.
Yeah. So we've thought about a couple of different game types, and while, like I said, we've tried running a few other things, nothing was really as popular as Capture the Flag. And King of the Hill sort of had a similar vibe to Capture the Flag, where we figured there's a way we can do this where we can have respawns for people, and you can have unlimited respawns, and you still have an objective that you and your team has to try to accomplish. It's just more of a timed mission where you have you have points mm-hmm. that are the hills, and you are trying to control them for a different amount of time. And the props, a little bit more expensive than Capture the Flag flags.
But it depends on how you go about it. I went a little bit more expensive with we got digital timers, basically, that count up. Mm-hmm. If you want to go cheap, you can go to... we have this thing called Daiso around here. It's basically a thrift store.
Right.
You can go on to Amazon. They have stopwatches you can buy for $6 each. So for $12,
you go to the dollar store and get, dollar stores have kitchen timers and things like that as well.
That's true. So basically, it's just you get a timer. How it works, quick explanation. You find a fixed point where you have the 2 timers, and the team has to go. There's 2 separate teams, just like Capture the Flag. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to get to that point, start your timer, and stop the other one.
Yep.
So basically, the goal is to have the most points, be it you have the most time at the end. It depends on how you want to rank it, but that's why I like counting up, because whoever has the most time at the end wins. whoever has the least time taking away loses.
Right.
It's basically, someone's going to correct me on that. I feel like I said it wrong. But basically, you want to have control of the point the longest.
Right.
You want your team to be in control of it, and you want to kind of hold it down, fortify it, and control it and get those points. While the other team is assaulting you. If they're victorious and get in there and change it, then now it's your turn to assault, and now you have to go in and try and reclaim it. And if there's chaos in the middle where both teams are just going out like crazy and people are mashing the button left and right, it's like, of course, be careful, but then it's like, oh, that chaos is kind of fun because it becomes more confusing and more of a toss-up, and it's just that chaos, people love it.
Yeah.
They love feeling like they're enthralled in the middle of a battle, just bullets flying from you at every direction. Someone's going to kill you. You're about to get killed. You're taking care of people at the same time. It's just madness is so much fun in my book. I love it.
I agree, and I think that's what our players have enjoyed. And again, you can run this a variety of ways. You can probably think of other more interesting ways to do this. This is sort of, we are just getting the things together, and we're going to be beta testing this at our next game, and we're going to go from there. So right now we have 2 timers, and you hit it and it's counting up, and we're just going to have a certain amount of time, and then the game is going to be over, so whoever held the point for longer. But I mean, if you want to say whoever holds the point for X number of minutes, and then just have counters that are timing down, so you're always starting and stopping them, and then once one of them gets to 0, you'll know that they have won. I mean, you can do it that way. I'm sure that people have probably thought of more interesting things to do and different ways of wiring timers up or having different things there or making it more interesting in some way, shape, or form. But it's definitely a game type that we really are excited about and think that hopefully people will like. So it might be something you want to try at your games. And you can do multiple hills as well. You don't have to just have one point that everyone's fighting over. You could have, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. We really recommend odd points
because that way
if you have 2 and they both have a tie, then it's kind of like, well, no one won because we just sat at our points and took the minutes counting down and defended.
Yeah, I like the idea of multiple points because it kind of forces the players to make a choice. With capture a flag, the one thing I would say that's kind of not really a hindrance, but more like its only weak point is that once both flags are at the other base, it's over, game over. If someone capitalized at the right moment and just pushed at the right time, that's it. What I like more about King of the Hill, potentially, is there's a shot at redemption. Let's say you capture your first point, someone else captures the second point, and that third point is now contested. Other team gets it. There's no reason you can't go in and get that point back and start collecting points. There's always a shot that by the end of the game, you can still get the most points.
Right.
And then also, it gives you choice, too. Instead of saying, hey, we're always going to go for their base to get the other flag, even if there's a flag swap.
Yeah.
Because our rules are you have to have both flags at the base in order for the game to be over. Even if there's a flag swap, it's like, okay, I'm still going to go in that general direction, always towards that flag. With this now, you can be like, okay, we got the first point, we got the second point. We could go get the third point right now and just accumulate score like crazy.
Right.
Because then you have 3 counters all ticking up, and it's like, okay, cool. So even if we lose that point again, hey, we got points out of it. So it was worth it. Or conversely, if you're the other team, it's like there's no reason I can't flank behind that team now and go get the one they had control of. There's 3 different points. There's different options. There's different choices. You're not just going for the same point every time. You can mix it up.
I do like having choices, and I think the players will really enjoy that as well. But, we'll see, and we'll do what we can with it and see what we can spruce up. And if rules need changing, we'll try to, again, account for what will make the game the most fun for us and our players.
Yes, and let's talk cheap options. So if you're just starting Nerf wars and you want some cheap game types, 2 that I feel work, not as good as Capture a Flag or potentially King of the Hill, but still are very popular. Team Deathmatch. Team Deathmatch is always really popular. It's simple. 2 teams, keep firing until everyone's dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of variations, a lot of things you can do with this as well. You can mix it up quite a bit and have, again, medics or different things like that in the game, have lives. We really didn't like that. When we used to run it, it was the same thing, like 1 hit, 1 kill, because it's just easier to police it that way. And again, the only real downfall we had with this game was just that if somebody died, they were out.
Yeah,
you can't really have respawns.
If you died right at the beginning, then it's like, okay, the rest of the game is going to go on for 45 minutes, so you just have to sit here and do nothing.
Yeah.
And that gets boring. I mean, ideally, if it's a smaller group, then it's like, oh, cool, we can kill each other really quickly, and then it's over and we can start up again.
Right.
If you got those people who run, hide, try and assassin their way out of it, I mean, to them they probably feel really cool. And by all means, I don't want to tell them they should go just commit suicide because the game's almost done. But it does drag the game on, and it does suck for the people who aren't going and shooting and playing. One way to resolve this, of course, is you can put a time limit on your games. You can have a watch saying, like, okay, no matter what happens at half past the hour, we're just going to call it game. Whoever has the most players win. Yeah. So it puts pressure on the players to actually go out and play and kill everyone.
Yeah. It's something that definitely we did, and we know a lot of people do and enjoy, so we don't want to say it's not fun, just that we enjoy being able to continuously play more. Mm-hmm. And our players are always saying, like, how do we just keep playing more? Like, let's not break for as long. Let's keep playing, stuff like that. So,
yeah, that downtime, it's good and bad. I tend to think more to the bad side. Mm-hmm. But people need to rest, so sometimes it's like, okay, perfect, let's take a break. Oh, I was shot, good. I really need the rest after that last game, right. So I'm happy I can just sit down for a half hour or whatever.
Right.
But for the most part, I feel like players want to be active. They constantly want to be doing something. The other thing, too, is there is an element of teamwork in Team Deathmatch. Of course, you want to coordinate with your teammates and not die.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's not the same capture the flag where different skills work out. You can have defenders. You can have people on offense. There's nothing to defend. There's no objective where you can have different skill sets to do. It's basically who is the best at shooting people and not getting shot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There's whenever you don't have as big of an easy, I don't even want to say easy, but as clear of an objective where it's like it's a flag and our goal is to go and get it. When your goal is just to eliminate the other team, it's like, well, if they have people that are really good at dodging, they might win just because they have people that are good at that. Whereas capture the flag, that'll help you, definitely, but because there's an actual goal that is getting the flag, just see it, people, more teamwork. I don't know.
Yeah, someone can be super fast and be a lousy shot. Great, you're wanted on the team now for capture a flag.
Right, plus you can attack and defend, whereas if you're doing Team Deathmatch, you don't really have defenders. You're going to have people, well, if I'm not fast and I'm really slow, I'm just going to sit here and basically be dead weight to the team.
Yeah, and once again, depending on your field type, if you're out in an open field, then it's like, okay, it can be fun for a quick little skirmish. There's not very many places to hide. I feel like it would get dull very quickly.
Agreed.
Because it's the same basic approach every time. I'm going to get close, hope I'm in range, and just start shooting.
Yeah.
At least in an urban environment, like if you're playing at a school or anywhere with cover, then you can be like, hey, I can hide behind this and try and surprise someone and get the sneak on them, get the sneak attack on them. You don't have that same option in a field. So that makes it a little bit trickier. It's kind of why I like capture flag a little bit more, because then it's kind of like, how much do we want to push forward? How much do we want to push back? Same with King of the Hill. How much do you want to there are decisions that can be made outside of what skills can I bring to the table as far as getting other people out.
Right. That being said, you said 2 game types.
Yeah.
So,
I think you know what I'm going to go with the second one.
The second one?
Yeah.
There's 2?
Yeah.
Is it Wingman?
Yeah. You can be my wingman anytime, Josh.
I heard she lost that love and feeling, Shawn.
Highway to the danger zone. Oh, that's like the unofficial theme of Burn.
Yep, more or less.
Because our first official Burn game, that was the theme we went with, Danger Zone. And I think it's funny because like 2 weeks after we had that game, Drac had a game online where it was Highway to the Danger Zone.
Yep.
And I'm like, he stole it from us.
You know.
He took our idea.
Yep, our Top Gun theme was first.
If you don't believe me, I have his forum post and I have our Facebook topic with it. I can prove it was like 2 or 3 weeks right beforehand. But Wingman. Wingman is a very simplified version of Team Deathmatch where basically instead of having a big team, you'll be on a small squad with either like 2 or 3 people and your goal is just to survive. Yep. Just last with your team. And what's fun about it is it forces you to use teamwork.
Yeah, you get to interact with people that maybe you wouldn't interact with. You're like, no, we have to stick together and we have to do this and we have to come up with small unit tactics really quickly, and it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot more conversation, talking. Of course, if you have a good team for Team Deathmatch where everyone's calling shots, like, 2 of you go over here, we're going to stay over here, try and draw them out, draw them back. You have a rapid-fire blaster, so I want you to charge in, just try and get as many as you can.
Right.
Whatever tactics you want to call out. With this 2 people, it's like, look, here's what we can hopefully do better than everyone else.
Yeah.
Let's do it. And you are constantly in communication. It's like, should we go? I think it's a good idea to go right now. Let's hold back. Like, there's so much more conversation you can have with just two people. Because with a group of like 8 or 10 people, some people are going to be like, I think we should do this. And people are like, no, we should do this. I'm like, no, that's stupid. We should do this strategy
and
instead.
then you'll have people that might just say, well, I don't care what your strategy is. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
If there's two people, like you actually have to either, you have to come together and decide on what you're going to do, or you're just going to die really quick.
Because as soon as people see one person alone, they're like, oh, we could just prey on them, get on them right now.
Yeah.
And it's easy prey.
And
you need a buddy.
Because there's so many teams, you see that a lot where there's like 2 teams engaging, and then another team will try to like sneak up and then capitalize on that battle. Like, okay, now that they've finished each other off, oh, get the last person that's alive or something. And that happens, and it's so much fun.
Or you get alliances.
Or you do get
where
alliances.
Where it's like 2 teams like, hey, we're both buddies. Let's team up. And if it's 4 of us against 2, then we can just roll and get them all.
And then at the end, we'll just do, a shoot-off to determine who wins. That's can be fun, but if you get too many people doing it, it can be a problem.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons we don't play it as much. Well, there's 2 main reasons, I believe. One, people start forming alliances, and then they just steamroll the rest of the game. It's like, okay, cool. It's the same 4 people always winning them because they just team up right away.
Right.
That kind of sucks. I do like the feel of having it be just 2 players, you 2 against the world, The Last of Us, Joel and Ellie, just trying to take out the zombie horde.
Exactly.
So that's fun. But number 2, camping. No, I like mine better because it has Ellen Page in it. She's so pretty. So is Joel. I'm jealous of his beard and scruff.
I understand.
Dude is like 55 or something. He's old and looks good.
These things happen, Shawn.
I mean, he should be really weathered having survived a zombie apocalypse. But he looks like he's younger than ever.
Just saying. But anyway, reason number 2.
Camping.
Oh, yep.
Oh, sorry. Were you going to say something else?
Nope. Go for it.
Okay. Camping. I hate camping. Like, here's the thing. Let me clarify that. Camping is a legitimate strategy. If you can sit there and hold back and get kills, then it's like, okay, fantastic. That's the smart way to do it. I'm not going to say it's the right way to do it, but it's the smart way to do it because you sit there. We've had players who are like, okay, so there's 16 people on the field. We're going to go hide in this corner and hope everyone just takes everyone else out. And then we'll go at the end and just score the last 2 kills, and then we're good. Save all our energy, save all of our ammo, and just roll in at that right opportune moment.
Right. I agree with Shawn. It is a legitimate strategy, but I feel like I came to a Nerf war to shoot people with Nerf darts. So if I am not doing that, I am now not having fun. That's like basically I'm benching myself for no real reason. But, I mean, it is what it is. I'm not going to say people shouldn't do it or you should make a rule against it. What I was going to say is there's actually 3 reasons. If you're throwing camping out there, I'm going to say, again, it's the time thing. Where people get out, and then by the end of the game, there's, 3, 4 people left, and everyone else is sitting around like, okay, shoot each other so we can start again. We're bored.
It got to the point where a couple players, me included, would, if I knew it was just 2 or 3 players left, or it was me and 1 or 2 other guys, I'd just yell, hey, buddy. Yeah? I was like, you want to end this the honorable way? Don't want to yell too much in the mic, but I'd be screaming across the field. And it's like, what do you have in mind? It's like, let's meet up in the middle, back to back, walk 10 paces, and then duel each other.
Yep.
We would do this. And this was back before the elite range came in. So if you're dealing with these old 30 feet range blasters where you're about 35, 40 yards away from each other.
Feet.
Well, I'm assuming I walk 3 feet. I don't walk 1 feet forward each pace.
Yep.
I have a bigger stride, Josh.
No.
I have the long legs.
You shoot me hole bigger.
Well, yeah, if I keep shooting at the hole, it'll get bigger. It'll deteriorate. But yeah, we just do 10 paces and then just go at it, which is like the perfect range for Nerf, too, because you can dodge, but it's close enough where you don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And you're constantly moving around. And it was just the fast way to end the game. So you're like, okay, epic shootout, we can do it where everyone's watching so they can be like, okay, at least we get some sort of climactic finish.
Right. Not just, I come from around a corner, one person's like, I won. You're like, oh, yay, I'm glad it's over.
I mean, there was one time, I think our very first game of Wingman, where we played in elementary school. Mm-hmm. My partner died within the first 10 seconds.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, great. So I was running around the whole time trying to like knock off one players and stuff. And in the end, I got like 3 or 4 players. So it wasn't like I was hiding the whole time.
Right.
But I made it all the way to the end, and I'm like, I feel like this would have been a lot more fun if I had a buddy to do it with me.
Yeah, exactly.
But my buddy, unfortunately, had to sit there for the entire game.
Yeah.
Be like, whoa, this is fun. And I'm sure he fell at the end. It's like, oh, cool, Shawn won. That's a surprise, but I take no victory in that.
Right.
It's a person I was paired with for 10 seconds, got to use no strategy. God, he went down so quickly, though.
Yeah, it happens. And that's the problem with games where it's like, okay, I go down immediately. And again, you could do lives and things, but it's just hard to police because then, well, now I have a mag strike, and okay, now there's all 3 of your lives right there. Like, yeah. Okay, well, it's the same thing. So,
or specialized ammo is like, oh, I threw a missile at you, so that means you are dead.
Yeah, too many rules just it makes the game not flow as quickly.
One shot, one kill. I love it. It's simple. If you want people to keep playing, respawn points.
That's right.
Make them walk all the way somewhere far, and it's like, oh, I don't want to die because I'm tired. And they get back and it's like, oh, I'm tired. If I just stayed alive and been more cautious, I'd have more energy and can attack more.
Just remember, stack, pistols only, license to kill. Oh, I just realized that like so many of our listeners probably have no idea.
They're probably too young.
I'm like, oh, I'm an old man, Shawn.
It's okay, Josh. You only live twice.
Yay.
That's not a yay movie.
It is when I only live twice. It's better than only living once.
It's better than the first James Bond movie I saw, The World Is Not Enough, with Halle Berry.
I'm sorry, Shawn.
That was my introduction to Bond.
I'm so sorry.
When I was younger.
So before we run out of time, we could keep going on with some other game types we've tried, but I think, and we've mentioned this on the podcast before, we did a whole episode about it, but HVZ, because our fan asked about HVZ.
Our one fan.
The person who emailed us, John, asked about HVZ, if we do it or not. So we have gone to HVZ games. We do not host any, personally. Yet. Not saying we aren't going to or we don't want to, just that right now we have not.
Yeah, and the reason for that is with HVZ, it's just like Team Deathmatch or any other game mode where there are so many different ways you can play it. Mm-hmm. There are so many different ways. You could do it for a week long or a couple weeks, or you can do it in one night, or it can be a whole day event. Mm-hmm. It can be persistent. It can be refreshing after every round. Refreshing, I mean by humans that became zombies can become humans again and get swapped and stuff like that. So there are different ways you can look at it. The version that I am most accustomed with, and once again, this is just me and also Josh as well, because I've been to every single HVZ he's been to, because I stalk him. Yep. A little bit. I get lonely.
Yep.
It's
wall post in the middle of the night. Josh, are you awake? Like, Shawn.
And I hear back, Shawn, why are you awake?
Why are you awake? It's like,
you have to be awake at 6 a.m. every day. Why are you up at 2?
Yep.
Because Dracula. Batman.
Sure. Makes sense.
Batman versus Dracula.
Yeah.
It was a good movie.
Yeah, I gotcha.
It was. It's the only good thing to come out of the Batman. Humans versus zombies. So the game mode we're most accustomed to is usually you'll do one evening or one day or basically a couple hours where you are running scenarios that you have to do. You have mission objectives you have to complete. So you'll start off as a human. You'll have some ammo. A couple people start off as zombies. They will not have ammo because they're zombies.
Yes.
And it'll be like, oh, you have to go collect these 3 boxes. You have to go solve this puzzle. You have to go find this person. It's a story, basically, just like in a video game. You're given a mission objective you have to complete. The zombies are there to hinder you and make it more difficult. Mm-hmm. And you try and just survive until the end of the game when stuff gets progressively more and more crazy.
Pretty much.
And the way those games are usually played is once you're turned, your turn. You're a zombie for the rest of the day.
Right. That way the horde continues to grow.
Yeah. And as it should be, because zombies are intimidating as a horde.
Yes.
Another player we play with, he has an event up in the city. Foam Action Network, if you want to check him out on Facebook, you can check out all the games he runs. But he does HVZ up in San Francisco, and the way he plays is you go from one place to the other trying to do a mission objective, and then at the end of that round, basically teams are scrambled. So if you were a human, you might become a zombie and vice versa. That's another way you can play it too. That way everyone gets a fair share of being a human and a zombie. It never feels like one side is, well, one-sided, has the edge.
Yeah, you get to choose basically at the beginning, like, well, as a moderator, you can basically say there should be twice as many zombies to humans. So, hand out cards, and I've got twice as many cards that are red face as opposed to black face, or whatever you're going to use to determine humans and zombies. And you can do that every single time. That way people get a chance to be either or, etc. And then, of course, within that round, as people get tagged, the horde grows. He's done games that aren't like that as well.
Yeah, he's done it the way we mentioned before, where it's just a couple hours, persistent death, and humans versus zombies. It's like two separate teams that just you get recruited over to being a zombie.
Yeah.
And you can't go back.
Yeah, which,
Yeah, there's different walks. Like I said, there are people who play week-long games where as soon as they're at college campuses, as soon as they're out of the classroom, you're vulnerable, zombies can attack you, you got to have your Nerf pistol or socks ready, and you got to make it back to a place that's safe.
Definitely.
So that sounds interesting, but I've unfortunately never done it. I've only done the type where it's like, okay, for a couple hours on this day, we're going to play a game type.
Right.
And I feel like where I see it usually works best is in a controlled area.
Definitely.
I feel like that's one thing there's so many things I want to stress to people trying to run games, but it is extremely useful and beneficial to you. I wouldn't say it is pertinent, but it is extremely useful if you have an area you have control over.
Right.
So oftentimes I'll see players go to public parks, go into areas with high traffic, foot traffic by regular people. It really hurts the flow of the game if you have to keep stopping for pedestrians walking by.
Yeah.
What's kind of nice about playing on college campuses, where I feel like a lot of HVZ is big, that's where it got its start, is that you have a younger crowd who is more accommodating to the idea of people running around dressed as zombies and other people trying to tag them with darts.
Right.
But it's also an area where it's clear boundaries, and you have enough structures and stuff to be like, hey, we can incorporate this into the game.
Right. Definitely.
You have that control that really allows you to kind of say, okay, I want the story to work this way. I know how the field's going to be. I know what the foot traffic's going to be like. I know what everything's going to be like. So I can create conditions and stories that work well to this campus.
Exactly. We don't want to profess to know too much about HVZ since we haven't run anything, and there's just so much you can do with it, with adding special zombie classes, adding special human classes, giving perks, different ideas for storylines, different props you can use, different just objectives and things in the game to make it interesting, different balancing issues you can and can't do. There's so much for HVZ. If you're thinking about running HVZ games, go to the HVZ forums, because there's a lot of invaluable information there. So we can only tell you from our experiences as players what we have encountered and what we really think works.
Yes.
So,
and with that, I feel like that's the big appeal with HVZ, because as a player, from our perspective, it seems so simple. Here's what you do. You come up, you're dressed as a human, fantastic. Your goal, hit the zombies and survive. As a zombie, what's your goal? Just tag as many humans as possible. Extremely straightforward, easy to grasp. Usually it's when you start trying to flash it up a bit with special infected, special rules, complex scenarios. That's where it gets more complex. But at the same point, that's also what makes it more fun too.
Right.
If you have these special zombies like, oh, the rules are different. I don't like change. You're like, okay, now I need to think differently, and it gets more dynamic and it gets more exciting. But that's oftentimes where I see players kind of start getting confused, and that's where it gets hard on moderators.
It definitely is something that I feel is harder to moderate than just a simple capture the flag type game, because there's usually so many more people, and again, if you do really want to make it fun and memorable, you're going to add all of these little elements to the game and little rules that are just hard to police all the time. So as a mod, you have to come up with a way to put them in, to balance them, and to execute them in a way that's fun, interesting, but easy to understand for the players, and something that they can basically on the fly change up for. So like, okay, I know that I can't use ranged weaponry on this person, so I have to find somebody who has a sword so that I can be with them so we can defeat this one zombie or something like that. All that stuff. It needs to be information that's easily relayed through visual cues and things like that. throughout the game.
Yeah, and once again, like I said before, rules, hard and fast.
Definitely.
You want to make sure players understand them and that they're able to relay them to other players. Last game, not the last one actually, sorry, that was like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Last month I played a HVZ game where this guy was walking by and he's like, this looks really fun. I would like to play. And the moderator's like, yeah, sure, if you have a blaster, just come and play. So I was already turned into a zombie at this point, and I'm walking behind the crowd of humans, like shuffling towards, well, not shuffling, I run and scream. Let's be honest. I am a 28 Days Later zombie.
Yeah.
I like to run and yell at people and try and freak them out. And this guy, I was looking at him, and I'm like, what's his melee weapon? I haven't seen that before. And I look at the handle, I'm like, that kind of looks like an umbrella handle. Does he have like an umbrella with a sleeve over it? So I see the moderator right next to him, but he's in the action, which granted, they have like 80 plus players playing at this point.
Yeah.
Their eyes can't be everywhere. So I'm like, hey, Nate, does that guy have an umbrella right next to you? And is he using it to hit zombies? And he turns to like, is that an umbrella? And the guy's like, yeah, but it's fine because it's in the sheath and other people are using melee weapons. And like, yeah, they're made of foam. Foam that won't stab or pierce skin.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, then I don't have to use this. And then he was also using a pistol at the same time too. And the rule at SFSU, San Francisco State University, is that if you are running melee, you can't have a ranged weapon at the same time.
Right.
You can always have socks on you. You can always chuck those at people, but you can't melee and weapon. It's just too overpowered. You would almost never die. And honestly, check out their games. They're super fun. We mentioned Foam Action Network. The event organizer for that, Connor, has great games in the city. But if you live here in the Bay Area, I just wanted to give a shout out to them real quick. Both great HVZ games.
Yeah.
They're great to run. If you want advice, like Josh said, go to the HVZ forum. But as a player, I can tell you what appeals to me about HVZ. It seems very simple. I love zombie culture, so that's very fun too.
Right.
And there's so many ways you can mix it up a little bit game to game. We mentioned we like to experiment with capture flag and tweak the rules every game. Small tweaks, but enough to where the game feels different. Mm-hmm. HVZ feels like a playground. It feels like you can do whatever you want. So
different. You can break up into teams and squads, either as humans or as zombies, and try to complete different objectives. I mean, something else to think about is zombie objectives for like games where you have a lot of zombies. Like, well, have the zombies have to do something for a round and have the humans have to defend something. It almost sort of switches the positions up. There's a lot of different things to think about with respawn points for zombies, or if they're just crouched down. Tons of different things. Something else that you might not think about, HVZ draws a much bigger crowd than Nerf. So if you're looking for players and you want to grow your games, try going to an HVZ game if they have one nearby, because you might find people and be like, yeah, if you're interested in this, if you want something that's less zombies and more capture the flag and this sort of stuff, it's a good place to find people who already have Nerf blasters and might be interested in coming to your games as well.
And it's amazing on the other note, too, because our games, typically, Josh and I thought everyone who plays Nerf wants to do these modes like Capture Flag, King of the Hill,
right,
Team Deathmatch, Wingman, the games we mentioned earlier. We thought everyone wanted to play these games. Going to HVZ, you get people who are like, nah, I just like HVZ.
Yeah.
This specifically is what I like to do.
Yeah.
And with some players, it's amazing. One of the moderators there, Patrick,
mm-hmm.
really cool guy. And my first game, I wanted to say, hey, I really just wanted to say you guys did a great job organizing this. You kept great control of your players. You were able to get the rules effectively. It was a fun time. It's like, oh, that's really cool. What blaster do you have there? And I'm like, it's a Strife?
Maybe you've
And
heard
to
it?
me, I'm like, what?
Right.
That's like you drive up to someone like, what's that? It's a car?
Yeah, it just seems like, oh, they run HVZ. They must know all of the Nerf blasters that are out. They must know everything new and totally be in the know and be following all these things because they run a Nerf-themed event. Not true. If the people who are running it might not know, then certainly some of the players are probably like, nah, I just, went to the store and bought this, or my friend told me this was the one to get, or some people just run melee, so they're like, nah, I just have this, boffer that I bring,
mm-hmm.
and I always run this.
Oh, that was the other thing to mention, too. We've mentioned it before. We don't run melee at our games. Not yet.
That is something, yeah, at our capture the flag and things like that. And again, these are just things you want to think about in your games. How will melee, either add to the game or take away from the game as far as fun is concerned. Shields, another big one. Do you want to allow shields or not? We don't allow stuff like that.
It's funny, I'm looking at Josh as he said that, no. And I'm like, I really enjoy doing melee for HVZ. I don't like it for like tactical goal objective stuff. Shields all around, I just hate. I think they're a horrible idea unless you want someone to be specifically overpowered. In HVZ, they did that where if you rescue someone, you have a shield dude now. You have a riot cop who can block the zombies for you. And in that situation, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. If everyone can roll up with a shield and a sword or a strife and can just poke people and hide behind it, I'm like, oh, then you're done.
Yeah, no. Exactly.
That's why it's riot gear. It's designed for hordes of people.
Yeah, you really have to, these are just things you have to contemplate when you're thinking about balancing your game. And I mean, by no means should you think that the games that we have listed are the only things you should be playing, or even games that people have suggested on the internet. You feel free to come up with your own stuff. We have, Connor at Foam Action Network has come up with so many different new game types or objective-based tactical games. There's like, he's always coming up with new, interesting things. I'm like, wow, I had not thought of a game that it functions in that way. So don't be afraid to try new things.
Yeah, and if you think you have a way to improve on an old game type, by all means, try it. I mean, I would have thought when I first started Nerf that capture a flag has been done to death. You know exactly how to play it. I feel like every person I talk to does capture a flag a little bit differently.
Oh,
they all have different rules, what they like at their games, what they don't like. And those little tweaks, what works for the player base, make it different everywhere. Every experience can be new or different.
Yep.
It's surprising. And same with HVZ. I feel like all the HVZ events I go to, even when it's run by the same moderators in the same location, I feel like it's a different game each and every time.
For sure. I think you're really only limited by, Nerf itself and pretty much your creativity and imagination. Yeah. That sounded so uplifting.
I just did the SpongeBob imagination, where he does the thing with his hands and makes a rainbow arc.
Reading Rainbow.
God, I don't remember the lyrics to the song. I'm so disappointed in myself. I was like, Reading Rainbow, yeah, I got this. Life is like a hurricane.
Butterfly in the sky,
rainbow.
Sean. Butterfly in the sky.
Wishbone, woo, do 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 do. But on that note, I mean...
Yeah, by no means are these all the game types that we have tried. We just, don't have time to list every single thing or go into detail on how some things work without some visual cues. Mm-hmm. So maybe at some point we'll do some videos on some game types that we've created from scratch to show people how they run and sort of the rule set for them. But, keep... What do you enjoy doing? It's all up to you and your players.
Yeah, let us know in the comments, actually. Like, if you want to let us know about a game type we didn't mention here today that you think is awesome and wants to get some airtime for it. If you have some rules that work really well for you. If you're big into HVZ and you have a mode that you guys play that we didn't mention here on the podcast, let us know. We'll talk about it on another podcast. Let it know just say it in the comments. People will read about it too.
Yeah.
Just feel free just to share different games because there's so many different ways you can get out and have fun.
I really feel like the more information the Nerf community shares as far as different games and things, the more other people will try, and then there will be this just more fun will be had by everyone. You'll draw new people in by having these games like, I've never heard of something like that. I got to go try it out. Or friends say, that's really fun. Boom. There you go.
And boom goes the dynamite.
Yeah.
So on that note, I think that's pretty much it for us today, guys. Once again, please rate, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you like about the podcast, what you'd like to see differently.
Mm-hmm.
Any changes, any game modes you want to see. Once again, you can check us out. The podcast is always posted on Podbean at nerfcastjs.podbean.com.
Or at BayAreaNerf.com, which is the easy one to remember.
Guys, here's a hint. Just go to BayAreaNerf.com. If you want to check out our games and actually see footage, video, pictures, stuff edited together for our games, we have it all posted on there. You can just go to the burn part of BayAreaNerf.com. Mm-hmm. It'll link you right to our page, to our rules if you want more specifics on how we run things.
If you live in the Bay Area and you want to go to some of the games that we did mention, check out our calendar at BayAreaNerf.com. It usually has links to all of the games for the month, and if you click on them, it has Facebook or Meetup links for whoever's hosting them.
I'll be honest with you, there's usually a game, at least one game, if not two games, going on every single weekend here in the Bay Area.
Pretty much.
It's a
We are
growing
lucky.
scene. We are lucky. It's a growing scene, but there's no reason you can't grow that same scene out where you live. Just find the people who want to have fun, who want to play, put a lot of hard work and dedication to what you do, and it'll eventually grow. Don't be discouraged if it's small when you start out. Josh and I, we used to just have 8 to 10 players when we got started.
Yeah, they were just our friends that we invited. They were like, yeah, let's try it out, sure. And they ended up having more fun than they thought they would.
Yeah, and as people have more fun, they want to bring their friends and grow it out from there and mention it. Just have fun.
Yeah, word of mouth is great. But, yeah, so other than that, thanks, everyone. Thanks for the emails and suggestions for podcast episodes and questions, and feel free to keep in contact with us. We love all the feedback, and we love all you fans.
Yep, so from everyone here at Nerfcast, this is Shawn.
And this is Josh.
Happy tagging!